What do you do when you need a new manga to read, but you don't know what you want, but you know you want something new, something unique? Well, you go to a friend, you ask for a recommendation, and then they give you one, and you're completely blown away by how awesome the manga is that they recommended to you. Hello friends, happy Friday, welcome back. I'm Laura A. Grace. I'm so excited you're here. And as I shared, my friend Sarah Ryder, I will leave a link here to her channel. She gave me a recommendation many months ago. In fact, I'm pretty sure that when this video goes live, it's been a while since I actually read it, but I had to talk about this manga because this manga totally surprised me. In fact, I really had been in the mood for something new, something different, and this was it. This is what I needed, but I didn't know I needed. And that series is The EARL and the Fairy. Oh my goodness, this is a shoujo beat title. It's only 4 volumes long. I'm really hoping that I can get this series, especially the first 2 volumes, because I really enjoyed it. This is volume 1. This is volume 2. Sorry for the barcode, man. Sorry for the barcode. Volume 3 and volume 4. And is it true? Man, only volume 2 is the one that had the barcode on the front. And of course it blocks Lydia's face, who's our main heroine here. That's so unfair to her, but that's okay. That doesn't take away my enjoyment from this series, and just so excited to talk about it today. If you're not familiar with The EARL and the Fairy, The EARL and the Fairy is a great shoujo title. I was about to say shonen. Shoujo title. I'm on the right genre here. But it's about our main girl here. Her name is Lydia, and she is a fairy doctor, and basically she is a person that has sort of like special abilities where she can see into the fairy realm, so she can see fairy creatures that are living in the real world. I don't know if that makes sense, but so basically nobody can see these fairies. I think this is like during London, like some kind of historic London, and people don't believe fairies are real, that they don't exist, but Lydia, like I said, is a fairy doctor, so she can see these fairies, and her job is basically to make peace or do things and act with actions and words so that the fairies are living in harmony with the humans and the humans are living in harmony with the fairies. And everything's going pretty well. I mean, people think she's sort of crazy because she'll talk to herself. She's actually talking to fairies, but people can't see them, so they're like, you're crazy. And so they sort of stay away from her. But her father invites her to come to London, I believe, because at the beginning of the manga, she doesn't live in London at that time. But I believe she was invited by her father, and then she goes to the docks, and there's this man, his name is Huxley. This is not Huxley, this is Eggard. And the manga actually opens up with him, and wow, he is a very interesting hero, but we'll get on him in a minute. But yeah, back to Lydia. She goes to the docks. She meets this guy, Huxley. Huxley's like, hey, I'm here in like luau of your father. I'm going to take you to come see him. She's like, man, he's really thoughtful. And then things sort of just go out of hand because then she basically gets abducted by Edgar, who says, I'm on your side, I'm here to protect you. Huxley's gonna do worse things, so just come with me. So begins her crazy and wild adventure. And oh my goodness. Okay, so the whole manga is very good, but these first 2 volumes, amazing. I was on the edge of my seat. I could not get enough of these. It has been some time. I feel like that I just got tongue-tied. It has been some time that I have read a manga that really reminded me of fantasy novels that I used to read. There is a fantastic riddle, and what was so great that, like, usually I feel like in manga we don't get fantasy creatures, but we had so much Irish English folklore. It was so great. I mean, I have never seen a fairy creature called a brownie, but brownies are in this, and that was so cool because I'm like, here is another part of like folklore, fantasy that I didn't know, and why they have to figure out this riddle. I forgot a huge part of the plot here, but the thing is that Edgar abducts her, I say adopts, abducts her because he is trying to find the legendary sword that belonged to the Blue Knight Earl, I believe is what that man was called, and he was basically like he had been given a task more or less, but anyway, that's a long story and that would be spoilers, but Edgar's looking for that because he feels it will do things. Trying to think of how to say this without spoilers here, but if he could have that, it would be really good. We'll just say that. I know that doesn't tell you anything, but he needs that sword, and he needs the fairy doctor to help debunk this riddle so they can go find the sword. And as they're going to do this. I mean, it's just such an adventure. It sort of reminds me of Shuriken and Pleats, which I have reviewed on this channel, in that the shoujo manga was very action-packed. It was not your casual slice of life. I mean, she's a ninja who can kick butt. This is another shoujo title that is like that, where you have this action. I mean, you pretty much see somebody die very early on. It's not graphic or gruesome, but you're like, okay, I was not expecting this shoujo manga to start off with a bang. No pun intended, okay? No pun intended, but let's roll with it. Got myself sidetracked with the unintentional pun. But, I mean, it starts off that way, and it just keeps going. It just keeps going, and there's this sense of danger and intrigue, and then the mystery, and like I said, having this folklore, and I think I was trying to say that earlier, but I got sidetracked, is, you know, usually in Japanese manga, which would make sense, that you're gonna have Japanese folklore, and so I just was like, wow, this is really cool to see folklore that I was familiar with because of fantasy novels that I had read in the past. I didn't know that was like a trip down memory lane that I wanted. It was so cool and so great. And like I said, I learned about brownies, and I'll see if I can share a picture or show an illustration of what a brownie is. Finally, I found the brownies, but they look like this right here. This is all the brownies. And they're just so cute. They sort of remind me of gnomes. They sort of remind me of gnomes, but like a much smaller version. I forget what Lydia says something about them, but I don't remember what it was. You also meet a bogey beast in volumes 3 and 4, which I had never heard of what a bogey beast was. But I mean, we see selkies, we see mermaids, and oh my goodness, the art of some of these creatures was absolutely amazing. I really, really, really loved it, especially when it came to the second volume. Now, with the second volume, I'm not going to say spoilers, but oh my goodness, I wanted to give this volume a 4 stars because the plot twist. Dude, the plot twist at the end of this was like so unexpected. I'm like, I can't believe we just did this. Like, we really just went this direction. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, but there's so much at stake. And I'm like on the edge of my seat, and I'm like sad because a certain thing happened. And then another thing happens, and it's just like, I am overwhelmed, but like in a really great way where you're really invested into the story, you're really hooked, and the art, as I was sharing before, I loved how it was drawn, reflecting a certain plot twist that was so very good. I mean, the riddle is really, really intriguing, and I just absolutely love it. Now, saying all that, let's talk about Eggard, our guy here, because as I was going through and trying to find these brownies, he has to be one of the most interesting heroes I have read. I mean, through this manga, he definitely grows, but this guy is definitely a liar, and he's a thief, and he's done things, and it is just so interesting to see his interactions with Lydia because they're just different than I expected. I feel like even when he has changed and he's learned things, like he's still a liar, and he's still a thief, and he's still manipulative, but I'm not going to say it's charming. I definitely do not feel it's charming. I feel Lydia would strongly agree that it's not charming at all. But you see why he acts like that as the manga goes on. And I'm not saying that excuses some of the decisions and the choices that he makes, but I do feel it gives more insight into his character, and I was thankful that Lydia does see that. Now, talking about Lydia and saying that, this is not really a romance, and if there is any complaint I have about this series is, oh my goodness, I was looking for a certain thing to happen in the romance department, and I was so bummed by the end that I didn't quite get what I was hoping for. I just didn't. I didn't quite get what I wanted, so I did knock 0.5 stars off of it at the end. I mean, it was great. I think I love Lydia and Eggard's like friendship, however you want to say it. There's so many different layers there that it's really hard. Like the romance is not just point blank where they could just hook up, be together, and, you know, be happily ever after. Like I know it's not that simple, but because this is based off of a light novel series, this is one time I feel like the manga is great. I would definitely recommend the manga, but dude, we need the light novels translated. Like I honestly feel that there was not enough of a closure. Like there's still, like you could still feel there's so much more to these characters. I'm like, I want it. I just want to see what happens because there's a bonus comic and the title alone gave away a spoiler, and I was like, are you telling me this isn't the light novel? Like, there's so much more to this story. So I think prepare yourself for that. That yes, this manga series is great. And it does have a good closing. I really loved, I mean, it was an epic conclusion. But if you were wanting more of these characters, which I know I strongly, strongly did, I wanted just so much more, that their story does not feel like it's over. Like, this honestly just feels like it's one part of their journey. Because I feel that was what was sort of interesting is volume 1 and 2 felt like an arc, and then volumes 3 and 4 felt like an arc. I didn't love volumes 3 and 4, and I don't think it was bad. I think it's just because I didn't love as much as this. Like, these 2 volumes, I mean, I was so hooked. I was so engaged and just invested, and it was amazing. There's so many different things I could say, and I love the action, and this one didn't quite have that as much. I also think that these 2 volumes were a little bit darker. Now, one thing I really did love about these volumes 3 and 4 is because due to developments in volumes 1 and 2, you actually see Lydia in a fairy doctor role. I mean, she has been, but it was more of like in title, I feel like. Now you're seeing her in action, and I really like that. I like seeing her work, and it's almost like in a way that I felt like she was a detective of sorts, even though I think there was a point she even asked, like, is this part of what a fairy doctor does? I think she asked that in the previous, like, volume 2, I think, actually, but I love seeing her at work in that sense, and there were more romantic inklings, which also aided in how much I did enjoy it. So volume 3, I gave this the lowest rating, and I think it's just because it was, I don't even remember why I gave it. I mean, it was still 4 stars for sure. I don't know, this one was just different, and there were so many more complicated feelings there, but you definitely see more of the folklore that I mentioned, and there's things with fairy eggs, and so it was very, very good, and that's where you start seeing more of Edgar. But I just feel like if I compared it to the previous 2 volumes, I just didn't love it quite as much. So I mean, it's not a knock to it or anything like that. Like I said, I mean, I love seeing her in action and more of the romance, and I thought it was just a very fun series, to be honest. I mean, for the most part, I felt like it was fun. It's a unique series because maybe because it was a light novel, I just feel like there's not another shoujo manga that replicates the things that this manga has, where like one thing I love about Lydia is, yes, she does share some of those common shoujo tropes of, you know, where she's very kind, she's very loving, she's very gentle, but she does not let Edgar boss her around. He may be manipulative, but he even says it, that he just can't seem to get her under his thumb, and she stands up for herself, and I really love that, especially in this volume, this second volume, because it's just like, yes. And even when the 4th volume, there was a great scene where I'm like, girl, you tell him. Really refreshing to see that she's not going to let herself be a pushover, that she's still going to think about people and care for them and do what she can with what she has been given. And especially when it comes to Edgar, yes, she may care for him, but she's like, I'm not going to let you boss me around either. And I wouldn't say he's particularly bossy. He's just manipulative. There we go. There is 2 other characters. I won't talk much about them, but Raven. I love Raven. Oh my goodness, he is a side character that is more or less related to Edgar, and he is so great. I honestly could just read so much more about him because the bonus comics at the end just really made me laugh in regards to his character, and I feel like there's so much more to Raven that it's just a great mystery, and I really wonder if his character is explored in the light novels because, like I said, I would just love to see more of him, and there is some tragedy, I feel like, behind his character and Edgar's and the other character that is just, it pulls at your heartstrings, and I really appreciate Lydia's kindness. Well, more of, yes, it was kindness, it was compassion. I feel like it wasn't sympathy that she had for him, maybe a little bit, but I really genuinely feel it was compassion, and that compassion drove her to make different decisions that affected Edgar in a positive way. And that was one thing I really liked, is if this sort of maybe is in certain situations girl saves boy rather than boy saves girl, it was not centered around the romance. So if you want a story that has those romantic inklings where it's not like their drive is because they love this person and want to be with them. Yes, they care for each other, but I feel like it was just, there was more drive to it, if that makes sense. Like, despite if they were together or not together, Lydia makes decisions where she wants Edgar to be able to move on in light, in freedom, and I just really, really appreciate that because she was doing it more for than just herself and wanting to be with him. Not that she necessarily wants to be with him, which is sort of like a running joke, so I won't go into details about that, but that was a fun part of it. And there is one other character, I don't know if I should talk about him because he's not on the front cover, I don't believe, but he is a fair, oh, he is right here. Nico, oh my goodness, I love Nico. He is so cool, and I think the manga artist mentioned that she was like, I would love to have him in my life because I know even if he'd be sort of mean at times, he would worry about me and look out for me, and just so much yes. I love how he looks out for Lydia, their friendship, their conversations. It is so great, and because you have that fantasy fairy aspect, it adds just another fun layer to the story, and especially since, you know, she's a fairy doctor, other people can't hear her talking. There's some great shenanigans that come up with that it's just, it just was a very enjoyable time when he is on page. Or if it's not enjoyable, because there are times he's on page and you're like, oh my goodness, somebody could die right now. Like, it has those kind of stakes, that it was still great seeing him on page and seeing his love and his care for Lydia and just different decisions and choices he makes that affects her. Very, very good. And it was in volume 4. There is a really cool scene with him. Okay, it wasn't cool for Lydia at all. It was actually very dangerous, and there was the most at stakes in this volume because just things were happening, and like I said, that people could die, and I was like, oh my goodness. But I love Nico in just those moments, and it was just, oh, it was really good. It was really good. I'm not sure which volume would be my favorite. Actually, I take that back. It probably would be volume 2 because it did have mermaids and such, and just like I said, the riddle solving was just so much fun to read. And I just have not read I feel, even though maybe this doesn't count as a mystery, I feel like I haven't read a good mystery like this in so long, and it was just so nice to read that. I don't know if I would pick up more mystery manga, but it was just great to read it. It was a nice change of pace, very different, and I'm just bummed that I'm late to the party, but thank you, Sarah, for putting this on my radar. I feel like there was another reader that commented on one of my videos saying how they were excited for me to read this. Thank you for also expressing your excitement, because between the two of you guys, I was like, it's time. It is time to read this series. So thank you guys. I love this series. I would highly recommend it. I definitely want to get this for myself. I'm thinking about going ahead and just ordering on Right Stuff because it shows it's out of stock, not out of print. Thankfully, very relieved to hear that. But if you are looking for something where you have just a more unique and deeper main hero that is not quote-unquote shallow, not saying other shoujo heroes are, but there's just so many layers. There is so many layers to his character, and you want some of that fantasy, fairy aspect, and you just want a great shoujo manga that is unique and fun and has just a little bit of something, I feel like, for any kind of shoujo reader, then definitely check out The Earl and the Fairy. Again, I highly recommend it. I would love to hear from you, friends, though. Have you guys read this series? What did you think? Do you like reading fantasy elements in your manga or your fiction? What are some of your favorites? Tell me all about it. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!